I never thought living with an alien roommate would turn my life into a full-blown experiment in chaos, but here we are. He arrived 3 weeks ago, claiming he wanted to observe human reproduction for cultural enrichment, and somehow thought my apartment was the perfect laboratory. At first, I assumed he meant studying from a distance. Turns out, he meant up close, in my living room, with zero boundaries. He has this habit of pacing around with glowing rocks in his hands, muttering formulas about pheromone efficiency and mating synchrony, like he's prepping for interstellar diplomacy rather than, actual human courtship. I swear, one day I walked in to find him floating in zero gravity, trying to serenade a potted plant with a karaoke machine he had jury-rigged from my old laptop. It's a ritual, he explained, eyes wide. Humans often sing to attract mates. Scientific consensus. Somewhere. I laughed, because what else can you do when an alien is convinced your ficus is sexually receptive? He watches every dating show, tutorial video, and questionable self-help guide he can find and treats them as gospel. Yesterday, he stared at me with the most serious expression and asked, "Do humans prefer aggressive poking or gentle nudging during courtship?" I almost choked on my cereal. "Neither," I said. "And you are definitely doing it wrong." But he only nodded solemnly and scribbled notes on a floating holographic pad, clearly convinced I was withholding vital mating secrets. He's obsessed with preparation. Candles, flowers, mood lighting, pheromone sprays, and interstellar tokens are all over the apartment now. He even tried to teach my cat to participate in the ritual, reasoning that domesticated mammals may act as courtship intermediaries. I had to explain, repeatedly, that Mr. Whiskers is allergic to everything, including glowing rocks. He nodded gravely, as if I'd just revealed a profound limitation of human evolution. The worst part? He keeps practicing human flirting on me. He imitates winks, overly dramatic bows, and awkward touches, convinced he's increasing my receptivity. I've started timing how long it takes before he notices I'm watching him cringe. He never notices. Last night, he tried to dip me in the middle of the kitchen while playing some online playlist he believed was sexually stimulating. I grabbed the countertop before we both hit the floor and reminded him that humans don't actually use furniture as dance partners. He tilted his head and said, "Yet your body seems intrigued. Improvement imminent. Every question is blunt, and every observation is worse than the last." He asked me if humans enjoy being groped while cooking, if they prefer tactile engagement over verbal stimulation, and whether we process pheromones consciously or subconsciously. I wanted to laugh, cry, and call social services all at once. Instead, I just muttered, "You're insane," and he took it as encouragement. And now he's ready to attempt it. He has charts, a playlist, glowing tokens arranged in a perfect circle, and even a zero-gravity karaoke setup for atmospheric alignment. He looked at me with those huge alien eyes and said, dead serious, "Tonight, we shall attempt human breeding. Observation and participation are mandatory." I didn't know whether to run, hide, or offer him a stiff drink, so I just nodded. Somehow, somewhere, I agreed to participate. By the time he started explaining the phases of receptive behavior, with diagrams on my walls and improvised pheromone diffusers, I realized my life had officially turned into a bizarre adult comedy. I was living with a roommate who thought romance was a scientific protocol, courtship a ritualistic experiment, and me, the exhausted human, as both subject and unwilling instructor. And somehow, this was going to be his first try. I braced myself. I had no idea if this was going to be erotic, terrifying, or utterly ridiculous. But judging by the glowing rocks, the floating karaoke mic, and the way he was staring at me like I was a puzzle piece, I was betting on all three. He had everything ready, and by everything, I mean a setup that looked like a mix between a nightclub, a science lab, and a shrine to romance. Floating candles, interstellar tokens arranged in some geometric pattern, and a karaoke playlist that he swore increased human libido by 37.2%. I was already exhausted, and we hadn't even started. He began by explaining, in excruciating detail, the Phases of human receptivity. While gesturing wildly with his glowing rocks. Apparently, phase 1 involved eye contact, but he misread my blinking as an invitation to stare for 7 minutes straight. I tried to look nonchalant while my eyes dried out and my brain recalibrated. So, what now? Are we supposed to do something? I asked, and he nodded vigorously, as though my hesitation was an exciting challenge. He insisted we start with the ritual of mutual energy synchronization. That meant I had to stand in the middle of the token circle while he waved a handheld pheromone diffuser in the air and hummed a tune he believed was romantically stimulating. I could smell something weird, kind of like burned hair mixed with a faint lavender scent, and I wasn't sure if it was him, the diffuser, or both. Then came the first major misinterpretation. He leaned in for what he called a demonstrative human embrace, which ended with me pinned awkwardly against the couch, knocking over a stack of books and my coffee cup. I muttered something about humans not usually combine hugging with furniture demolition, but he only smiled and said, "Structural collision enhances intimacy. Noted for phase 2. Next, he decided human courtship involved singing. Not casual singing. He grabbed the karaoke mic and launched into a rendition of what he thought were sexy love ballads, which sounded more like a screaming banshee attempting jazz while spinning in zero gravity. I tried to encourage him, but all I could do was duck floating candles and dodge interstellar tokens that occasionally pinged off the walls. He paused mid-song to ask for guidance on appropriate lip movements, which I wasn't emotionally prepared for. He mimicked kisses in the air with such precision it was disturbing, and he wanted feedback. I gave him the least encouraging shrug I could manage while praying the diffuser didn't spontaneously combust. "Better?" he asked, wide-eyed. "Human mating requires honesty," I muttered. "And right now, this is terrifying." By the time he started exchanging interstellar tokens, things were completely out of control. He handed me a glowing rock, explaining it was a gift symbolizing my receptive energy, and then demanded I reciprocate. I handed him a pen instead, and he looked horrified, like I had just insulted centuries of alien breeding culture. He muttered something about phase 3 adjustments, and threw the pen aside. The grand finale, according to his charts, was the cumulative gesture of human attraction, which involved some combination of awkward touching, whispered phrases, and synchronized breathing. I had no idea what I was doing, but he was so insistent that I tried to follow along. It ended with both of us collapsing in a heap, interstellar tokens rolling everywhere, and a diffuser spraying what I assumed was pheromone mist directly into my face. I sneezed, he flinched, and a candle toppled, narrowly missing my laptop. When I finally caught my breath, he looked at me expectantly and said, "So, did we succeed in reproducing the intended human mating response?" I blinked at him. "I think we succeeded in creating a small disaster, yes." He considered this a minor setback, adjusting his floating charts and scribbling notes furiously. "Excellent. Data acquired. Phase 4 shall be more precise." By the end of it, I realized something important. He genuinely believed he was performing a sacred ritual, and I was the participant. Everything was literal, everything was absurd, and somehow, it was also hysterical. I never felt more like a subject in a comedy science experiment, and yet, despite the chaos, there was a strange intimacy forming in the ridiculousness. And as he floated back to his control center, humming softly, interstellar tokens still spinning around us, I knew tonight was only the first attempt. Tomorrow, he'd be back, more determined than ever to perfect human breeding, and I'd have to survive it all over again. He returned the next evening, eyes gleaming with the kind of determination usually reserved for scientists attempting world domination. Apparently, last night's chaos was merely phase 1 data collection, and tonight, he was implementing corrective measures based on my supposed reactions. I was already bracing myself for disaster. He started with a lecture on optimized human mating techniques, complete with holographic diagrams showing gestures, timing, and even the proper intensity of eye contact. I tried to follow, but every time he explained a new step, He gestured so wildly that I narrowly avoided flying candles, floating interstellar tokens, and what I can only describe as his very enthusiastic demonstration of phase-specific hand placements. He asked questions like, "Do humans prefer tactile engagement over visual stimulation?" And, "Is sighing a positive reinforcement signal or mere respiratory function?" I answered cautiously, knowing he'd take anything I said literally. "Both," I muttered. "Sometimes it's just breathing, sometimes it's feedback." He nodded furiously and jotted notes, as though I'd revealed the meaning of life. His attempts at romance were creative. He tried a moonlit walk inside the apartment, turning off all lights and floating in zero gravity while holding a candle. I followed reluctantly, stepping carefully around tokens and a diffuser that seemed to release some kind of alien scent cocktail. "Is this how humans feel attraction?" he asked, eyes wide, as I nearly slipped on the coffee table. I sighed. "This is how humans feel terrified," I corrected. He recorded it anyway. Next came karaoke. Again. Only this time, he insisted on duet synchronization, meaning I had to sing along while floating in zero gravity, and avoiding glowing tokens being flung with alarming precision. Every lyric had a double meaning he didn't understand, and every misstep was recorded in his notebook. "I think your human voice indicates rising receptivity," he noted seriously. I glared. "It indicates rising nausea," I muttered. Then he tried the infamous interstellar token exchange, but this time with strategic timing. He handed me a rock while explaining it symbolized mutual energy alignment, and I countered with a notebook because, apparently, that was all I had on hand. He looked appalled, whispering, "Phase 3 misalignment, data corrupted." I laughed and asked if he always treated dating like a physics experiment. He looked proud. "Human love is science. I am improving accuracy." Adult humor escalated when he started discussing anatomical efficiency. He asked whether humans enjoy certain positions, using gestures that were far too precise and graphic for casual conversation. I attempted polite corrections, muttering things like, "Maybe not exactly like that," while he nodded and scribbled more notes. It was equal parts educational and mortifying. Dark humor appeared when he suggested adding environmental stress tests to improve human receptivity. I balked. He explained that sudden loud noises or unexpected physical stimuli could enhance the mating process. I stared. "So, you want to terrify me?" He grinned. "Data collection requires realism." I shuddered. By the end of the night, he had made some progress, if by progress we mean he managed one correct kiss, interpreted as a successful replication of human affection, while everything else descended into chaos. I was covered in token residue, perfume like alien mist, and an inexplicable layer of glitter from the diffuser. He floated above me, scribbling, humming, and looking extremely satisfied with his own performance. And yet, through all the absurdity, I noticed something. His literal interpretations, wild gestures, and insistence on following charts and formulas didn't completely ruin the connection. There was a weird intimacy in the ridiculousness, a sense that even in his over-the-top alien way, he was trying. He wanted to understand, to connect, and to learn the messy, unpredictable human mating ritual, and that was, somehow, endearing. I braced myself for the next attempt, wondering what new level of chaos, comedy, and accidental romance awaited. One thing was certain: my alien roommate's journey through human breeding was only going to get more absurd, more awkward, and definitely more hilarious. He returned with the most serious expression I'd ever seen, as if last night's chaos had been a mere warm-up for the real event. Today, he announced, we would execute the ultimate human breeding ritual. And nothing, not previous disasters, floating tokens, or scorched furniture, was going to stop him. I braced myself, fully expecting chaos, embarrassment, and possibly minor property damage. He had transformed the apartment into a bizarre shrine of romance and science. Candles floated in zero gravity, interstellar tokens spun across the room like confused satellites, and the pheromone diffuser released something that smelled faintly like burnt lavender mixed with alien chemicals. He hovered over it all, waving his arms dramatically, explaining that every detail was calibrated to maximize human attraction response. The first step, he said, was complete environmental alignment, which involves synchronized breathing. I tried to follow his exaggerated instructions, puffing in time while dodging spinning candles and tokens. He nodded approvingly, murmuring, "Excellent. Your receptivity has increased by 12.7%. I nearly tripped on a floating candle, which he promptly noted in his holographic notebook as unplanned excitement stimulus. Then came the karaoke portion. I thought last night had been bad. This time, he had a full playlist of human mating music, which he insisted we perform in perfect harmony. He floated in zero gravity, holding the mic at awkward angles, hitting notes that sounded like a cross between a dying banshee and an enthusiastic foghorn. I sang along hesitantly, trying not to inhale pheromone mist or get smacked by spinning tokens. The adult humor hit its peak when he began demonstrating what he called cumulative human gestures of intimacy. He leaned in, imitating kisses, caresses, and touches with exacting precision. Every gesture was executed with literal perfection, completely ignoring normal human nuance. "Is this the correct angle for affection energy transfer?" he asked. I groaned. "Maybe, but don't overthink it." He nodded, making notes, and proceeded anyway, which only made it more awkward and hilarious. Next, the interstellar token exchange. He handed me a glowing rock and explained it symbolized my mutual energy alignment. I handed him a soda can, because that was the closest thing I could find. He looked horrified, whispering, "Phase 5 deviation, but still interesting." I laughed, thinking that this might be the closest thing to a romantic success we'd ever have. He paused mid-ritual to demonstrate advanced pheromone modulation, which involved spraying the diffuser in intricate patterns while making exaggerated facial expressions. I sneezed, he recoiled, and a candle tipped over, narrowly missing my laptop. He noted everything meticulously, calling it unexpected variables in human attraction protocols. I wanted to tell him humans usually skip the lab experiments during intimacy, but he was too busy plotting the next phase. Finally, after what felt like hours, he leaned in for a proper kiss. I froze, waiting for disaster, but it actually worked. At least, by some bizarre alien definition, it worked. He recorded the result with pride, then looked at me expectantly. "We have successfully replicated human affection behavior," he announced, as though we just discovered the cure for interstellar loneliness. I rolled my eyes, covered in token residue and glitter, and muttered, "You're insane, but somehow, this was kind of nice." He floated above me, humming a satisfied tune while scribbling notes, completely oblivious to the mess of candles, tokens, and diffuser residue covering everything. I realized, in the midst of chaos, absurdity, and adult awkwardness, that despite the literalism, the mistakes, and the over-the-top rituals, there was a strange intimacy forming between us. The alien had tried, in his own bizarre way, to understand human connection, and for once, I didn't mind being part of his experiment. As the pheromones settled, the tokens spun lazily across the room, and the diffuser hissed its last sigh. I laughed and shook my head. Tomorrow, he'd probably refine his methods, try new experiments, and escalate the chaos even further. But for now, we had survived, we had laughed, and we had somehow created a moment of absurd, awkward, ridiculous connection. And maybe, just maybe, my alien roommate wasn't completely hopeless at human romance.